Welcome, Kiwi Codger here. Thanks for joining me for Chapter 8 of the Musket Wars, entitled Hongi Goes to England. Now, the story we hear about New Zealand on Hongi Hika is that he goes to England, meets the king, gets lots of gifts, which he trades for muskets in Sydney. Well, we're going to dig deeper. After all, he's gone for almost a year and a half. There's got to be a lot more to this. So let's kick off. From Chapter 7, we find Hongi back in the Bay of Islands enjoying the spoils of war from laying waste to the Bay of Plenty. Hongi knows that muskets are power. He also knows that to get muskets in the quantity he requires, buying from whalers in ones and twos is not going to do it. He needs to go to their source, England. He needs to strategically understand the British and the magnitude of their power. His visit to Sydney in 1814 was an eye-opener, but Ruatara says Sydney is nothing compared to London. Hongi determines to go and see for himself. Thomas Kendall, Hongi's favourite missionary, has made the arrangements. Kendall, Hongi and Waikato, acting as Hongi's aide-de-camp, will be travelling as a trio. This famous painting by James Barry shows the trio. It is done during their time in London. Hongi is in the middle. Departure is set for the 2nd of March 1820. As a side note, 5 days before leaving, the HMS Dromedary enters the bay. On board is the Reverend Samuel Marsden. Now Marsden is stunned and dismayed to learn of the trio's imminent trip to England. Because Hongi is in the party, Marsden is between a rock and a hard place. He really has no choice but to advise the Church Missionary Society in London to support them. This will cause lasting resentment towards Kendall. The whaling ship, the New Zealand, leaves the Bay of Islands on the 2nd of March 1820, as scheduled. It will take over 5 months, docking in London on the 8th of August. The party is met by representatives of the Church Missionary Society, the welcome being underwhelming, as they disapprove of this uninvited visit by Kendall, but are obligated as Marsden has emphasised the importance of Hongi to their mission. The Church Missionary Society is saddled with the cost incurred by the trio. The group stay in London a few days before making the 7-hour coach trip to Cambridge and their collaboration with Professor Samuel Lee, a linguist at Queen's College at Cambridge University. The trio, but mainly Kendall, will work with Professor Lee in constructing a written language for Maori. Hongi has a moderate command of English. Waikato's English is quite good. Kendall is fluent in both. Professor Lee rents them a house close to his. Hongi and Waikato become familiar and celebrated personalities in the Cambridge set. Their dignified but commanding demeanour impress all they encounter. They mainly wear European attire, but their tattooed faces make them unique. Invitations from the Cambridge set are many and varied. Appearances at fairs, soirees, balls and cricket matches make Hongi and Waikato the season's talking point. Among the University of Cambridge's notables is one who will play an indirect yet significant role in the Musket Wars. This is Baron Charles Philippe Hippolytus de Thierry, destined to become one of the fascinating characters of New Zealand history. The trio become intimately acquainted with this entrepreneurial 27-year-old baron. Hongi and de Thierry see in the other the opportunity of each realising their goal. For Hongi, it's muskets. For de Thierry, it's the acquisition of land over which he will be chief or ruler. Baron de Thierry is not a real baron. He's assumed the title. His dream is to put some substance behind it. A covert deal is struck where Dorothy will supply muskets in consideration for Hongi providing 40,000 acres of land around the Hokianga. Unfortunately, this is an area that Hongi has no authority over. Oh dear. The deal is sealed with the presentation of an engraved musket to both Hongi and Waikato. In early October, after 9 weeks in Cambridge, Kendall's work with Professor Lee finishes, and the trio bid farewell to Cambridge and leave for London. They stay with Sir John Mortlock of the Mortlock banking family in Dorset Square. Sir John introduces them to London royalty, prominent people and clergy. Their visit to the House of Lords creates a huge buzz. They are in black suits. The trio are rock stars. The second purpose for Kendall's trip is achieved in October when he's ordained a deacon, and in November as a priest. This will really irk Marsden back in Sydney. In November, Sir John organises an audience with King George IV at Carlton House, which was really a palace. Hongi's now famous words, "How do you do, Mr. King George?" is answered by the king with, "How do you do, Mr. King Hongi? How do you do, Mr. King Waikato?" Classic. During their conversation, mainly on marital matters, King George learns of Hongi's interest in warfare. The king escorts them to his armoury and presents Hongi with 2 muskets, a suit of mail, and a helmet. Hongi presents the king with an ornate Maori cloak. Here is a painting of the armoury at Carlton House. Wow, Hongi's eyes would have been out on stalks. Hongi had only originally intended on being in England 1 month, but events have swept past them. Now 4 months have gone, and after visiting the king, they're itching to be on their way. It takes another month before a passage is found for all 3. 3 days before Christmas 1820, they finally sail down the Thames on their way home. 156 days later, the Speak, a convict transporter, docks in Port Jackson, Sydney. The trio lodge with Samuel Marsden at Parramatta, as Hongi did when he visited in 1814. Also staying with Marsden are Tihanaki and Tiharete, prominent chiefs of the Hauraki region. Awaiting Hongi in Sydney is a consignment of approximately 500 muskets that had been arranged by Baron Dorothy as part of their deal. As an aside, Baron Dorothy would have trouble paying the London gunsmiths for this consignment and spends time in debtor's prison. But Hongi has his muskets, and the trio covertly organise for their shipment to New Zealand. They spend 5 weeks in Sydney before the Westmoreland leaves for New Zealand on the 4th of July, 1821. Also on board are the 2 Hauraki chiefs. On the journey back, they observe the large shipment of muskets, powder and shot, and inquire of Hongi who they're for. He replies, "They're for you." The warning has been given. Tihanaki and Tihareta know the power of muskets. Shit just got real. The Westmoreland docks in the Bay of Islands on the 31st of July, 1821. The trio have been away from the bay for 1 year and 5 months. With the addition of 500 muskets, Ngāpuhi have an estimated 1,000 muskets, a staggering advantage when compared to the mere handful owned by other iwi. All Hongi's focus now is on preparing for war. Tuhanaki's people, the Ngāti Paua, on the Tamaki River in Auckland, are at the top of his list. The Ngāpuhi are about to plunge marriedom into a reign of terror. So, that brings us to the end of Musket Wars Chapter 8. I hope you found this interesting and informative. The next chapter will be on observations of Maori life by Captain Cruz from HMS Dromedary, the ship that brought Marsden at the beginning of this chapter. You'll find these really fascinating. I did. So I hope to see you then. Until then, take it easy.